Hi, I'm Tony, and today we are going to take a look at precision angles in quilt piecing. That's a mouthful. Basically, whenever you have some pieces that are kind of like off, maybe you're combining a bunch of half square triangles together, or you're doing some flip and stitches and making sure that they line up. If you have any kind of angles that need some precision, this is what I'm going to show you how to do. So let's get into it. So let me show you what I mean about perfect angles in your piecing. I just released this pattern. It is a sewing machine. You can find this pattern on my website. Link is down below if you're interested in it. But in this pattern, I did this. So this is a combined piece and a flip and stitch piece. If you're not sure how to flip and stitch, I also have a link down below to that video. It's just a cool way of getting those little pieces on your quilting. So we have to combine these two flip and stitch pieces to this combined piece right here. So it looks like these. So these have already been assembled for the flip and stitch, and this is your combined. If you eyeball this, you may look at this and go, that doesn't line up, but it will. So we have, whenever we do this, let's say if that is our 1/4 inch seam right there, you see that lines up nicely. But how do we make sure that that lines up? Well, the first thing we want to do is decide which way our seam is going to point. Now, if you iron your seams open, that you can skip this step. You can just decide which way you want to go with it. But for my patterns, I have arrows, and those arrows tell you which way your seams need to go, because a lot of it lines up for nesting, so you get perfect points whenever you line those up. So in this case, it is this one right here, so it's going to the right. So our seams need to go that way, so that's the way that we want to make sure they point. So we're going to go this way and this way. So I'm going to start with the middle one here and go this way first. So what I want to do is, this is where we're going to sew it, because when we iron it, I'm ironing it that way, so our seam points that way. So what I want to do is actually, I want to put a 1/4 inch seam line here where I'm going to do my stitching. So because we use a 1/4 inch seam whenever we're doing this. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to draw a line right there, and that's where I'm going to sew, is right along that line. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to finger press this along this line that I just drew. Let's make sure, let's take a look at it. Yep, nope, my finger press looks pretty good. It looks like I did manage to finger press that. And that's important because we want to finger press this. And notice how if I were to sew it just like that, that's off a little bit. That's not going to give me that perfect seam. So I want to make sure that I take this and I'm going to line this up. Make sure that this is a 1/4 inch over here. All right, and then let's fold this, and that looks good. So if I were to sew and iron that, it's going to give me a nice, perfect seam. So let's go ahead and do that. That's exactly where it was here. So I'm going to put a pin in this, just like this, so it doesn't move as I'm sewing it with that seam right there. All right, so I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew this with some black thread so you can see it, and then where I'm going to show you what it looks like. All right, my seam is sewn, so you see I've got my lovely black thread there. Now, I want to check this before I iron it. So if I open this up, there's the seam. So you see how that's on there perfectly? So let's iron this. And there we are. And we're going to iron that. And after we iron that, you see how that seam perfectly lines up. Now, let's say, and I'm going to do this one wrong, okay? So this is, we're going to the right. So let's say if I draw my line, or if, you know what, let's not draw a line. Let's just eyeball this. Let's just go ahead and put it on here. Let's put my pin in there, and let's just see what happens. Because I'm going to show you what you do whenever you mess up a little bit and it doesn't quite reach it, and how you can fix that problem. How you can, if you've got it too tight or too loose, or what you're going to do. So I'm going to sew this, come back, and we're going to look how it's off and how we're going to fix it. All right, I've went ahead and I sewed it. Now, I purposely on this one did not sew a 1/4 inch seam. I actually sewed it a little bit too shallow because I wanted to show you, you see what happens whenever you don't line that up and sew that properly. Now, but what happens, how can I fix this? Well, if you didn't sew it far in enough, that's an easy fix. All you need to do is fold it over and figure out where that's going to line up there. Okay, finger press that. And then now I'm going to take this back to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew it along that finger press. And then I will show you what happens whenever you fix it that way. Now you can see my second line that I did. Oops, I missed it a little bit right there. So I may want to go back and give it a little bit more thread right there along my finger press. But the rest of it, I just followed right along where I pressed that. And then there's my perfect seam. All right, so let's iron this just to make sure that that is, in fact, kind of perfect. For the precision angles, there we are, and there is my piece. And that's in there perfectly. Now, what happens if it looks like this after you sew it? Well, that's a little bit too far. That means you really did not line that up. That's really too far. There is no fixing whenever it looks like that. In that case, you've got to rip your seam out, reline it up, draw your line, your 1/4 inch seam line, and then make sure that you line that up. But if it's too shallow, you can definitely just put another line in there. So hopefully this solves any questions that you may have about the precision angles. And that is precision how to make your angles look good. I told you it was a mouthful. All right, so that's how you do it. Hopefully you can now do this and you're an expert on making sure your pieces all line up. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Don't forget to like this video, follow my YouTube, as well as Facebook, my Quite Nerdy Quilters Facebook group, Instagram, X formerly known as Twitter. Did I say my Quite Nerdy Quilters? Yes. Every now and then I do TikTok. And don't forget I stream live on Twitch. So if you want to come and hang out with me while I'm live streaming and chat with me while I'm doing stuff, feel free. We have a lot of fun. My schedule gets posted on Mondays on my social media, so make sure you follow the social media to check all that out.